Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We don't know when this will be shown, but we're here on August 12th at 1 p.m. And we want to do this as a special news broadcast. I have John Toomey with me, and we just want to bring you up to date on some of the stories that we've been talking about over the last 2 months, 3 months. So if we can start, I would like to bring you up to date to a very interesting story. And this is the story that I've been following for the last 4 years, basically, as the only member of the public that attends the Municipal Light Board meetings and anything related to the Danvers Electric Company. So John, I just wanted to bring everybody up to date, as we've already talked about some of this, but the Department of Public Utilities has finally, after a year and a half filing of a petition and a request for the DPU to review the rates in Danvers and somehow determine whether we're spending our money in the right locations and the right projects. The department has now opened an investigation pursuant to General Law 164, Chapter 56, 58, and 63, relative to the February 1, 2018 letter and petition submitted by customers to Danvers Electric. Now, this was in regard to all of the spending that the electric company on the municipal light board, and they don't really have any power, but the electric company has spent on Locust Street intersection. They funded the entire project, not just the lights that they're hung up there. Summer Street intersection, another project where if it was only the lights, it would be nothing new. $5 million was transferred into the retirement fund, and another $3.5 million was spent or basically loaned to the Water and Sewer Division at no interest. $3.5 million. They're paying it back, that's fine. But look at what happened with the water and sewer rates last month. The increase was 15% for the water rates. So the DPU has opened an investigation, and as part of this investigation, the department will seek to determine whether Danvers Electric alleged transfers of funds balances were considered with General Law 164. The proceeding will be conducted pursuant to the department's procedures rules of 220 CMR 1.0. Along with the order, the department will issue a notice and request for comments. Thereafter, the department will determine the additional procedural steps as necessary, including, but not be limited to, discovery, technical conference, and or evidentiary hearings.
Well, my interest in this basically is very simply as a ratepayer, a resident of Danvers using electricity, paying electric bills. Am I paying for electricity plus something else? And I get that impression here. To me, I run businesses when I was a younger man, and we ran businesses strictly according to the rules, regulations, and what was best for that particular business. Apparently, we're using the electric light rates to pay off other things. Is that correct? Is that the way they legally should be done? is that the way that they should be done as a town municipal department. And also what's really bugs me is you don't know what you're paying for. You pay your electric bill and you don't know where the money is going. And to me, this upsets me. And whenever I speak to other people, the average person out there, they get upset that money is being spent and they don't know it's being spent for other things. It's just one of those things that whatever we're doing, we're looking into, the state is looking into, to see whether it's legally correct
and appropriate.
and appropriate.
The most disturbing things about this whole thing is that the value of these transfers to the town are basically $25 million altogether if you really look at the books. And those expenses that are being paid for by the electric customers should be funneled back to the reduction in rates or a one-time reduction in the costs that we're incurring.
See, what this is the impression I have, is these things are being done by decisions within the town administration, not by the town residents. You're spending the town residents' money and they have no idea what you're spending it on or that you're actually spending it. They think you're spending it for electricity and you're spending it on something else. You may be spending it on good projects, but those projects should get the approval of the average citizen.
Or be funded by tax collections.
Well, that's, if you get the tax money, you're getting town citizens' approval. They're
Right.
paying the bills.
Absolutely.
And when they, in this situation, they haven't the faintest idea that they're paying for these things, that's, to me, is wrong.
Well, I have taken this issue upon myself because of past experience that I've had. At the time when I was on the Board of Selectmen between 95 and 2001, I have fought this battle even at that time. And that was...
So it's been going on all this time.
Oh, this has been going on forever. This is, and I hate to use the term, this is Wayne's piggy bank that he used to have. And that's where, see, the whole situation started when I asked the question at the time when I was on the board. There was a expense that was being carried by the municipal light company of $76,000, and that was for some work that needed to be done to improve signal lights. 76,000 of that was for signal lights, but another 120 was for the improvements of the intersection or whatever. I don't even remember which one. But I raised the issue to Wayne Marquis. And at that time, Wayne convinced me, being a rookie on the Board of Selectmen, I was convinced that it's okay. It spreads the collection of taxes into the electric company bills instead of tax increases. So it was another source of taxes that they were collecting at the time. This has been going on for the last 25, 30 years.
See, that's disturbing. The average taxpayer is not disturbed as much in paying an electric bill as they are paying the tax bill. And
it comes more often. But, John, the most disturbing piece of this was when I was watching the Board of Selectmen meeting last Tuesday. I went to the meeting early, sat in for a few items, and we'll talk about some of those. But during the most recent Danvers Municipal Light Board meeting and the Selectmen meeting, our Municipal Light Board was very disturbed and conflicted why the residents and particularly petitioners were even asking for an investigation. They were confused. Why would people ask for this? This issue has been discussed by the Municipal Light Board, and the only answers we got was that the legal costs should be charged against the 39 petitioners. What they want to do is, because they're upset because people have asked for answers regarding these expenses that they have incurred, that they want to punish the petitioners that legally made a petition, and I was the one that initiated it.
Stop asking questions.
Well, that's the problem. Don't ask questions, because what they want to do is they want to intimidate the petitioners by the name that was given and the address, and they want to have the petitioners withdraw from the petition because it's disturbing to them and that is going to cost them money to defend their cause that they have been spending on. So what the Board of Selectmen discussed at the last Tuesday's meeting was there was roughly $15,000 worth of legal fees and department time and town manager's time. What the heck is he getting paid for anyway? So they came up with a number of $15,000. And what they want to do is spread that $15,000 over the bills for the petitioners that have made the public petition to the government of the town.
Taxpayers have a bloody right to question the spending of the money by the town administrators. And
so what is happening, John, is this was a direct threat to the retaliation to ratepayers and intimidation to our petitioning residents. These statements are recorded on the Topic of the Town News broadcast, which I filmed the Municipal Light Board meeting, and they have no indication that they're concerned about it. They just want to pass the cost on to the residents that have made the petition. So basically, we have to stop punishing our residents because our residents are already intimidated.
Well, we have to determine whether this is legal or whether this is right and whether this is correct. And hopefully, it's not going to take too long to do this.
Well, I hope they have a hearing, because I want the petitioners to have a public hearing with the DPU. And the final statement on this thing comes down to this. We respectfully continue to request that the identified expenditures be included when considering the rate calculation for the last 4 years. These capital expenditure costs must be reversed and returned to the ratepayers through rate reduction and/or direct refunds to the ratepayers. This has been going on for too long, and finally, even after 18 months of the petition being filed, the DPU is finally attempting to address this. So hopefully we will hear more about it. But you haven't heard anything about this in the newspapers.
Nothing.
Nothing like that? Nothing about the selectmen's meeting? There's no, whatever the town manager releases to the newspapers, that's what they print. So hopefully this will help our residents to understand what is really going on. All right, John, we have a story that's continuing. This is the one that John Zavaglia was, or introduced 2 shows ago, about a month ago. there was a presentation made by Mr. Trask as chairman of the, I don't know what it's called anymore, Housing Assistance Trust, I believe. And then he sat at the selectmen's table and voted to basically donate 128,000 or 100, well, it's a $250,000 lot that they want to be donated for $128,000, but there are costs associated with it, back taxes, back fees, and everything else. So I don't understand this, but the problem is with Jalbert Lane is that it's located in a very unique location. It is a floodplain for some of the residents that are living along Jalbert Lane. It's wetlands, clay, basically overlooking the river. And what has happened, this has been abandoned at least since 2009. I believe it was abandoned a lot earlier. So the question I have is, how many more of these pieces of property that are not collecting taxes on, how many more does the town basically own? And they're not materializing the tax collections on these properties, because now they claim that this is a 100 feet by 150 foot lot that has been basically abandoned and is being owned by the town for taxes owed. And now the residents are all uptight because they want to introduce a low-income housing, house in that area, or
is this
affordable housing.
A lot within, there's more town property around it?
No, this is a lot.
What's surrounding it?
Private lot, and private lot, and the street. So basically, it's been, the residents, what they told me and John, is that they have attempted to negotiate a split of the lot between the two residents. And they were willing to work with the town to absorb that land into their land, and they'll basically be paying taxes on it. They were told back, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, that no, it wasn't for sale, or it wasn't available. So there was something going on in the background. Since then, the selectmen, in their wisdom, have voted to donate that property for $128,000, with Mr. Trask voting in as the third vote. So it was originally 2-2.
This is low-income housing?
Well, affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Whatever affordable means.
Yeah, define affordable.
That's right. And the residents were interested in talking about what happened with Laurel Road. That was another piece.
Would it be housing or apartments or condos?
Housing, just single-family housing, I think.
How many?
Just one.
Just one.
That's all they can build on it. So the thing is that the residents were told that it was not available or they couldn't buy it. Now all of a sudden it's been found and it's a viable piece of property. The only saving grace is that the Housing Assistance Trust is going to have to investigate whether it's buildable lot because of the Phragmites, the water issue that's in there. That area, I've been told, floods the whole street. So
what's affordable housing?
That's a good question. I've been asking that same question. To me, it is low-income housing. That's what they're pushing. But they call it affordable. What is affordable? It depends. A family of 4, I guess, can make, I think, what I remember correctly is about $80,000 a year and still qualify to buy that property.
Do they pay normal taxes, house taxes?
They would have to pay normal taxes, yes. So I don't know who's going to own it. I don't know who's going to finance it. So there's a lot of questions. But the issue here is that Mr. Trask, and he knows better because I admired him for his comments at the last meeting, but at this meeting, he was judge and jury, and he voted as a selectman to pass that land on to the Affordable Housing Trust.
And he's a member of the housing.
He's the chairman of the Housing Assistance Trust. And he's on the Board of Selectmen, who made the decisions to do this. So I think the residents should ask Mr. Trask to recuse himself from that vote, and that vote should be reconsidered. But that's something that the Board of Selectmen is going to have to do. That's a political issue, and I don't think they want to touch it. So hopefully it'll fail the perk test and you know, the dimensional test and the water contents of the soil. It is connected to the sewer. So there is no question about a septic tank. It's connected to the sewer. They don't have water, but it is connected to the sewer. And they were even confused about that. So I call on Mr. Trask to recuse himself.
You're saying they have water, they don't have town water?
No, they have well water.
Well water.
Yeah. It's right next to the river, basically. So, I mean, the groundwater is...
Which river is it right next to?
I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry. There's so many rivers that commingle in there. So, that's the call to action of the residents. They should be have the Board of Selectmen reconsider that vote, and whatever falls, falls. But right now, it doesn't smell right. So, that's the second story. Now, speaking of Mr. Trask, he made a very good point at the last Selectmen's meeting. At the Selectmen's meeting, he had a question that he raised to the clerk about the minutes of the meeting for the Board of Selectmen. The minutes of the meeting are so skimpy, I should say, that they only identify very few line items and they don't want to deal with the details. So, listen, what happened is that Mr. Trask was very concerned about the requirements that they imposed on the builder of Maple Street, the three-story addition that they want to do, and the sidewalk impingement for the safety. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Those conditions that they imposed and they voted on should have been recorded in the minutes of meeting. And they're not. In many cases, they're not. And what happens is the town manager defends himself that he put it into a letter to the contractor or the owner that's going to be building this. But the thing is, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, nobody's going to remember that. So the thing is that Mr. Trask is absolutely correct, and I applaud him for bringing the issue up, but what the issue on the Board of Selectmen, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen said, that's all you get.
Well, see, this doesn't make any sense to me. When I was involved in the local politics, that the minutes of a meeting, you could get the minutes of the meeting and get a outline, not an outline, but a consistent understanding of what went on at the meeting. And it was a written copy of what went on.
Right.
And what you're telling me is that it's not. It's just bits and pieces?
It's very high level, summaries of what's included. The minutes of the meeting are available from the clerk's office, and they go back and you can dig them up, but all the information isn't there. So what happens is
Well, they're not an exact copy of what was said.
no, it's not a copy of what was said. Oh, absolutely not. They rely on the film of DCAT filming the show.
Does
The
DCAT keep-
show, the selectmen's meeting.
Does DCAT keep years and years and years?
They supposedly have some. I don't know exactly how far they go back, but they can be available.
To me, that's records of what went on.
Right.
And that, to me, is important enough that it should be kept.
All right. We are running out of time. I mean, this is going to be a full version show in a minute. As a result of, I think, Mr. Trask's comments and the previous meeting, there was very unusual situation that happened in the beginning of the selectmen's meeting, where 3 or 4 individuals stood up and presented their case of issues that they have had with town government and the town traffic, the town storage facilities, and the town imposed litigation that has been done for by Miss Fuller in regard to her boat tie-ups that they were offered at the time. So I was impressed with that. That was, and the selectmen, in their wisdom, kept quiet for about a half an hour. They let them talk. And this is the new business that's identified in the front. And I congratulate the Board of Selectmen for allowing this to continue, because these people have had special issues that they wanted to present. And the problem is that they should not have to go to the Board of Selectmen to present these issues. These issues should go to the departments that are responsible for in Town Hall. And the Town Hall should resolve these issues, not pleading their case to the Board of Selectmen. So I give the Board of Selectmen credit for being receptive and listening to the residents. The final story, and I am going to skip my little notes, but the final story is that the reason I went to the Selectmen's meeting is that on the agenda was the request to renew the Verizon cable license. There was a one-line item on there. This license has been in effect for, I think, 20 years, because originally Comcast was on board. Comcast was giving us 3 or 3.5%. Then Verizon came on because they wanted the competition. Well, we went, the town and DCAT and the town government went through a lot of motions to renegotiate this renewal of the Verizon contract.
With who?
With Verizon. So the town hall assigned the assistant town manager to be the negotiator for the town. Well, if you remember, a year ago, or more than a year ago, we went through a lot of gathering of information sessions, public input into what we should have and what we don't need with the costs. Well, DCAT incurs costs, and Verizon was paying 3% plus some capital costs
3% of what?
of their gross revenue.
Okay.
Now, the gross revenue, basically that Verizon cost, is built into the fees that we pay. If you look at your Verizon bill or Comcast bill.
Yeah, it's just something they pass on
There's
to
like
their
$12,
customers.
$13 at the end of the bill that are to cover the costs of
Yeah.
whatever they're committed to by the federal government and the state government. So what happened is we had all these grandiose plans of increasing our return from Verizon to 4.5, maybe the maximum that we can get is 5%. A lot of the communities in the region are getting 4 to 5%. But in our negotiations, we have stopped increasing. We have reverted back to the original 3% with some capital money that they're going to invest in the town of Danvers. But it's surprising that we had this public meeting with the Danvers Cable Advisory Committee. We made our pleas, we made our statements, we had them written and everything else. At the time, the attorney was all glowing because he said, oh, I may even go for 5%, or at least 4%. And what happened? We negotiated 3% just like we had before. No change. So what we're going to do, what's going to happen, I'll bet you, is that DCAT is going to have to reduce the services that they provide. And one of them may be our show. Maybe that's the reason they did it, is because they don't want to hear us complain about the issues that are happening in town. But what I want to make sure is that we, as Topics of the Town News, are the only source that reports on many of these political and financial issues, because the newspapers have totally forgot about Danvers. Newspapers, Salem News, now the defunct Danvers Herald, don't even report about Danvers. They're more interested in the national and the state issues, but also Salem is representing Salem. That's where they're for. Beverly, maybe Peabody, but Danvers is totally ignored. So we will continue on the issues of the community news issues that we've been talking about, the community news desert, with hopefully, if I can get an agreement from Karen Andreas and Jeff Pope from the old Danvers Herald, maybe we'll have them on the show and discuss this issue.
That would be interesting.
That is going to be interesting.
So
At this time, I think we've covered all except for one. And I'll give kudos to the town government, town manager and previous town manager, because that's where it all started. There was an article on July 30th, Danvers' new AAA bond rating could save town big money. And it's absolutely true. But at what cost? They have maxed out tax collection. They're spending money for projects out of the electric company budgets or electric company receipts. Water is going sky high. But hey, maybe this will stop the discussions in regard to an override or a debt exclusion, because I think right now, last Tuesday, they've issued $24 million of bonds for the Smith School, which is great. And they went at minor rates compared to what we used to pay.
Running a town is about spending money. That's the...
Well, then the taxpayers have to get concerned a little bit about spending money, because their pocketbooks are getting low.
Well, it's going to get worse as we go along.
All right.
Is that it?
John, we're going to conclude our special edition of the Topics of the Town News. Our next scheduled show will be September 5th on Thursday. And we will bring you the latest and greatest of what's going on in town. And what I would like to bring next show is the new DPW garage that they're building and the office complex. It has grown in double the size of what it was originally planned. The foundations are in already.
Wow.
So we're going to go and take some pictures over there. Good night, Danvers. Good
night.
evening. Good afternoon. We'll see you on September 5th.